Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Woodgate to my Southgate. It's Justin Peach.
Good afternoon, Ryan.
Justin, we're back. The Second Tier Podcast is back for a new season. What a summer we've had, Justin. What a Euros we've had as well.
Yes, almost too good to be true, wasn't it, really? Although it is a little bit nice going out in the quarterfinals because I don't know about you, but those last two games obviously so stressful. Not good for not good for the heart.
No, not at all. And it's weird because the nation is still kind of mourning the final, even though it's our most successful tournament since 1966. But it feels like it's not. Also, maybe because of subsequent events, but we'll let that pass. Well, it was a great Euros, wasn't it? We also saw the emergence of a South American superstar playing in the championship. It is, of course, Chile's very own Ben Brereton Diaz. I mean, apart from the Euros, that was my favourite sideshow of the whole summer. It was just brilliant.
The thing is as well, he had a good tournament. Like, he wasn't there to make up numbers. He had a very good tournament, and he carried on his form because he did display some really good form for Blackburn last season and carried on into the Copa America.
And he's actually a fan favourite as well.
Yeah,
it's so bizarre that this lad from Stoke is now one of the most celebrated stars in the whole of Chile. It's just incredible. But that's the championship for you, ladies and gentlemen. You been up to much else, Justin?
I started CrossFit. That's fun. That'll be interesting. So
that's it's very intense, isn't it? From what I understand.
Yeah, but watching England in the Euros has got me prepared for it because if I can get through that, I'll be fine.
Yeah, okay. I can understand that. Well, look, welcome back to the biggest championship-specific podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. As I say, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. The weekly podcasts are back in your lives for another season. We hope you've enjoyed the series of Meets episode from the past few weeks. Cracking listens, if I do say so myself. But it is now time to look ahead to a new championship season, and it all starts here. I've declared it so. 19 days until the start of the new season. Just in 19 days, the Euros has completely messed up my, clock of when everything actually is, because it's slowly creeping up on us, the new start of the season. And it seems like some teams in the championship just haven't clocked on whatsoever because they are not making many transfers. Well, some have, and we'll talk about that in this episode because that's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have a chit chat about some of the transfer business from the past few weeks. We're going to talk about some of the big news, in my opinion, that being Michael Olise to Palace, Alex Mowatt to West Brom, and whatever the hell is going on at Derby. And then in the second half of the show, me and Justin are going to each pick out two transfers which have caught our eyes so far in the Championship. So you have that to look forward to as well. So let's crack on, Justin. Michael Olise, the boy wonder. He's left Reading for Crystal Palace. 8 million quid he cost because of a buyout clause. So a bit of a bargain, really, for Palace. I think you will agree. What are your initial thoughts on it, Peachy? Firstly, a good move for Olise?
It's a really good move for Olise. I think Palace is a very good place for young players to go and develop. Because I think a while ago we were saying Nathan Ferguson, it's a good move for him. Izzy, it's a good move for him. You look at the likes of Joel Ward and Wayne Hennessy who have developed at Palace themselves. It just seems a good place for young players just to go and flourish and showcase. I mean, Zaha has been incredible there. So for Olise to go there, it is a good move. And obviously Palace are in this position where they literally have to press the reset button because they've got a lot of players out of contract, a lot of older players. So injecting that youth back into the side. And as well, because Izzy is injured, I think Olise will get a fair bit of game time. So yeah, it's going to be good to see him showcase his abilities at the top level. It's just a shame we didn't get to see more of it because we had one full season where he literally was incredible. He was so good last season.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about Palace because Premier League. But I'm kind of a different opinion to you, really. I think Palace are in a weird situation because they have had so many players out of contract. They've got Patrick Vieira in as manager, which is Izzy's injured. They have Also brought in Mark Gurley, which is a transfer I'm obviously a fan of. But they're in a really weird state at the moment. And at the moment, I'm looking at them and thinking they could be in danger of getting relegated from the Premier League this season or this coming season. And for Olise, I think it makes sense because he's looked at that and thought, well, I'm going to get game time, you'd have thought, or at least a fair chunk of game time at Palace. I just think he maybe could have done with another year in the Championship, because while he did have a great season for such a young lad in his first real full season in the Championship, it felt to me like he was a bit inconsistent at times, and maybe another season at Championship level would have done him the world of good. So if he went to, I don't know, someone like Spurs, for example, you know, a top Premier League club, he probably would have got loaned out again. Whereas at Palace, he's now got to make that step up. And I think it might just be a bit too soon. I hope he proves me wrong, because, I mean, we've been singing his praises all season, haven't we? He's an absolutely class player, and I'm sure he will go on to be a class player. I just wonder if maybe he could have done with another year in the second tier.
There's argument for it, but I think he's also, we've spoken in the past about him having that level of arrogance you need to really thrive as a young player. And I think that's something that's going to help him step up. I hate bringing back the example of the likes of Zaha and Izzy, but they had that same level of arrogance. I think that that Olise had, that they know they're good players, and they know that if they get the chance, they are going to take it. And those two have stepped up, and I think Olise will do the same thing. And also, he's not burdened by a massive price tag either, because I've read stories in the past of players being affected by 20, 30 million pound price tags. £8 million is not a massive fee for a player of his age, so he's not burdened by that either. So I think it is a good move for him, and I think I do hear what he's saying. Another Championship season would have helped, but he's going to get game time at Palace, and that's something that's going to help as well.
I don't think we can compare him to Izzy, in my opinion, just because Izzy had such an unbelievable season, and it was so obvious that he needed to step up to the Premier League. Whereas Olise, I just think, had a great season, maybe could have done with another year. But let's talk about what it means for the Royals, Justin. Olise's old club obviously lost an incredibly talented player in Olise. Also worth mentioning, Omar Richards has gone now. Yaku Mate is going to miss the start of the season. So they're in a bit of an interesting situation, aren't they, Old Reading?
Yeah, it is a strange one. Obviously, Mate's injury is an ACL, so I imagine he'll be out for a lot longer than just the start of the season. And as well as that, Olise, you lose Olise. For me, a player like him is the difference between finishing in and outside the top six. Now, it is parachuted a little bit by the fact that John Swift was injured or was out of the team for a large period of the season last season because of injuries and whatnot. So he can step in, and he adds that creative gap that is now left there by Olise. But the thing that's quite interesting for me is Olise's assisted Luka Shaw 4 times, Yaku Mate 4 times. So he's the main supply for the Reading front line. Well, he was last season. He was the main supply for the Reading front line. So I do feel like a replacement is needed, and he's not the type of player that Ajara is, but a player who can play in gaps, play in spaces, and can link up really well with that forward line, because that, as I say, is going to be the difference between finishing in and outside the top six for Reading for the coming season.
Yeah, with John Swift, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he's a fantastic player at this level. It's just last season he was burdened with injuries, and then when he actually did play, his form wasn't as good as we've seen in the past. So now Reading are massively relying on him getting back to his best this season. I think £8 million, Reading will be a bit annoyed that they've only managed that they had that buyout clause in there, because they probably could have got another zero added on there. I mean, another 10 million at least is what I'm trying to say.
80 million.
80 million. That's quite steep. But you know what I mean? So, yeah, but Reading need to sell. Everyone knows that. It's very widely known that Reading need to get some money in the bank, because before they bring in players, they need to get rid of players. And £8 million certainly goes towards that. But yeah, I'm a bit worried about Reading for next season, just because I thought they'd be able to build upon this season, but it seems like they're going backwards now. I don't think they'll be in any danger of going down or anything like that. I just think they're massively weakened compared to the side that we saw last season. Let's go from one playmaker with a wand of a left foot, Justin, to another. Alex Mowatt has gone to West Brom. It's after his deal with Barnsley expired. And I tell you what a signing for the Albion that is, Justin.
Pound for pound, probably the best signing of the window, just because the caliber of play you're getting for the money you paid for him, which was absolutely nothing. I don't think there will be a better value signing for in the Championship this season. I guess the key question is, can he step up? Because obviously he's played for the likes of Leeds before, obviously a big club, but they weren't at their best when he was playing for them. And then it's Barnsley, but now he's stepping into a team that are going to be competing to get into the Premier League. So that's going to be an interesting step up for him. But he's followed Valérien Ismaël as well. There's going to be a familiar style of play there. I think it's a top signing. There's no other words for it, really. No. It's a great signing.
You say make the step up. I was surprised that Premier League teams weren't sniffing around him, because he had such a good season at Barnsley last season. He was their best player and probably the best centre midfielder in the Championship last season. He was absolutely class, whether it was setting up goals, scoring goals, set pieces, even doing legwork in midfield as well. He can do it all. He's an absolutely fantastic player. And for West Brom to pull off this signing, I think is just remarkable. And it's one of the reasons why I'm quite fancying West Brom heading into this new season. Don't want to give too much away because we have got our table predictions coming up in the very near future. But I think Alex Mowatt, there won't be a better signing than that, as far as I'm concerned, in the Championship this season. Quality player. If he carries on his form from last season, then West Brom fans will be laughing.
Oh, everybody will be, apart from opposition fans, obviously. I mean, Barnsley fans wished him well, which was nice to see, because I imagine you get a section of supporters who will think he's just trying to get the highest amount possible in terms of salary. But it was mainly well wishes, which gives you an indication of the type of player and how important he was for Barnsley. If he can have the same impact at West Brom as a similar impact Conor Hourihane had at Aston Villa, it's only good things, isn't it? Obviously, it's another signing from Barnsley. It's left-footed as well. There's a lot of similarities there. But yeah, there's just nothing but good things to say about it. I'll be interested to see what system Bilic plays, because for a long time,
Ismaël.
Who did I say?
Not Bilic. You said Bilic.
Wow,
you're a couple of years late, mate.
Yeah, no idea. It's because I'm thinking about the 4-2-3-1 Bilic played. That's why. It'll be interesting to see what tactics formation that Ismaël plays, because he's got to get Pereira into the team. There's the likes of Romain Sawyers, there's Livermore. It's going to be an intriguing window for West Brom.
It's an embarrassment of riches, isn't it? When you look at that West Brom squad, the fact that they've still got Pereira, I don't think he's going to leave either. I think it's very much going to be a Brendia at Norwich situation from last season, where no one actually comes in from Pereira because there isn't that much money floating around at the moment in the Premier League. Well, not as much money as usual. And Pereira's going to be at West Brom next season. And a midfield of Pereira, Diangana, Alex Mowatt, Jake Livermore.
Stop.
It's just frightening, absolutely frightening. And again, that's why I just look at this West Brom team. And as long as Valérien Ismaël manages to get the style of play that he wants over, then they'll be having a quality season next season. It will be interesting to see, actually, because at Barnsley, it's worth saying, actually, if anyone wants our thoughts on the appointments of Ismaël, Parker at Bournemouth, all that stuff, then go on our YouTube channel, because over the summer we were giving our thoughts on big news updates over there. So that's why you're not hearing much of that in this episode. But Ismaël, he had different tools at Barnsley, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he knew what he had. Whereas now he's got these incredibly talented players, and getting the best out of him in his system is going to be incredibly interesting. But yeah, West Brom looking very healthy heading into the new season. Just before we have a break, Justin, let's have a chat about Derby, your beloved Rams. So at the time of recording, Derby have just 13 senior players. 13. That's just enough for a game of 6-a-side and 1 sub. And dare I remind you, the season is just 19 days away. Well, 20 for Derby. As our resident Derby fan, Justin, when you look at the state of the squad, what are your emotions?
The state of the squad.
That's a big sigh.
Yeah. When you say the state of the squad, it's what squad? Would be the first thing you say. Is there a squad there? No, not quite. There's obviously
it's
a fair
really
few
squad,
trials.
It's just
it's a gang,
a gathering of people.
Yeah, it's a gathering. It's such a weird situation because as a Derby fan, I've not experienced this in my lifetime. Even when we had financial issues back in sort of the mid-noughties, we still had a squad. So this is uncharted territory, but there's a fair few trialists on board. They're okay. I think the main situation that we are worried about is obviously the transfer embargo, and there's a lot of speculation as to what that means for Derby because apparently under EFL rules you can't sign anyone, and players that are contracted to the club that have made an appearance for your club count as like a squad list. Technically Derby can't sign anyone because obviously the Chorley game in the FA Cup last season, a lot of youngsters played. So at the minute, we can't even sign the 40-year-old trialist we have on board at the minute. So
Phil Jagielka, for anyone who's wondering.
Well,
I mean, you've got a few. While we're on that, it's worth mentioning the trialists off the top of my head: Richard Stearman, Phil Jagielka, Ravel Morrison, Sam Baldock, Sonny Aluko. You know, it's just a bunch of experienced championship players, really, isn't it? But carrying on.
Well, I was going to say that Derby can't even bring in loan players because they can only get those loans until January, which obviously if you're a top flight club loaning your youngster, you want to get them out for the season with a recall option in January. So that's the reason why Mengi, for example, hasn't joined Derby yet. Or maybe one of the reasons. But as you were saying with the trialists, I'm not I think the trialists, as far as players available for Derby, they're not a bad bunch. Like Richard Stearman's a very good defender at this level, or a good defender at this level, very experienced. Jagielka's Phil Jagielka,
very experienced.
Ravel Morrison, I think everyone wants him to do well, but if Neil Warnock can't get a chime out of him, can Wayne Rooney? And Sam Baldock and Sonny Aluko, Reading fans won't be too enamoured by it, but Derby are picking from a very okay pool at the minute. So as far as they go, they're not too bad, but nothing's going to change until those accounts get submitted, and nothing's going to get better for Derby until a takeover is sorted. But, you know, I'm looking on the bright side. I'll be quite happy to watch a squad of 13 compete in a championship week in, week out.
It'll definitely be interesting. They have obviously got academy players, haven't they? But many of them got sold off in the fire sale that happened back in January when Derby were trying to raise funds. You've pretty much covered all of it there, but I will say this: Derby are a mess, and even that's being kind. Behind the scenes, it's chaos, and we spent 8 months joking about whether Derby's takeover has been done yet, and it still hasn't.
No.
And that's not ideal when a couple of months ago the owner was saying he didn't want to pay wages anymore. So the behind the scenes chaos has finally caught up with what's happening on the pitch. And I hate to say it, but Derby fans, this is going to be a long, hard season. Other championship fans probably couldn't give two shits, but I do feel sorry for what Derby fans are going to have to put up with for the next year. Right now, I can't see anything other than relegation. The squad stayed up by the skin of its teeth last season, and it's even weaker now. The league's got better, in my opinion, and the manager is inexperienced. And he's not exactly been too convincing in the time that he's been there so far, has he? So unless they play a blinder in recruiting players when they can actually recruit players over the next few weeks, I worry that this season could become a bit embarrassing from a Derby perspective. Well, there we go. Justin, shall we have a break? After that, we'll have a good old chinwag about some of the transfers which have caught our eye in the Championship over the summer so far. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. Right, Justin and myself have picked out 2 transfers each that have happened in the Championship over the past few weeks, and they've caught our eye. It's worth pointing out they're not necessarily transfers that we say are going to be a success. It's just ones that we think are worth highlighting from the past few weeks. So I'll start, Justin, if you don't mind. The first one that caught my eye is Rob Atkinson. to Bristol City. He was a defender who was at Oxford last season. And it's a move that has really got me excited, Justin. Really, really excited. Because this guy was the best defender in League One last season and looks to be the real deal. Still only 22. And they've reportedly got him for just 1.6 million, which in today's market could end up being a major coup for them. From what I've seen of him, I'm getting kind of similar vibes to Adam Webster and the impact he had there when he was at Bristol City. And look, what he's gone on to, class in the air, reads the game brilliantly, good with the ball at his feet. And I'll be honest, I was taken aback quite a bit when Bristol City actually got him in. And I mean this with no disrespect. I thought he'd go to a side kind of in the same kind of level as West Brom or Fulham. And I know he was also being linked with a move to Celtic. So for Bristol City to get him on board is a phenomenal signing on their behalf. What do you think?
I can't say I know a lot about him. Obviously, I don't follow Oxford, but if you look at players
League One, twice in one episode.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a recurring theme over the next.
It might be.
Anyway, if you look at players that have come out of Oxford over the last few years, they've been very good. Rob Dickey is the first one that comes to mind, obviously, because of his impact at QPR last season. If it's anywhere near as good as that, it's a very good signing. And that goes to show, obviously, you're saying the clubs that Atkinson was linked with. It goes to show the pulling power Nigel Pearson still has. And obviously Bristol City as well, because they are a big club. I don't want to use the term sleeping giant because it's overused by pundits, but at championship level, they are a team that they're about to do at least a playoff campaign. So obviously the last one, it was in 2008.
Well overdue, really, aren't they?
And they've been there or thereabouts, and really they should be making a step on. I think with Nigel Pearson at the helm, they can do that, but it's with signings like Rob Atkinson, who are 22, who have value in them, that they need to make this. They need to make these sorts of signings. Obviously, the likes of Andy King and Matty James don't follow suit, but they're free transfers. The value's there anyway. But yeah, this new strategy that they're possibly putting in place is the right thing to go about it for Bristol City.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's what every championship club should be doing.
Yeah,
make sure there's value in these players a couple of seasons down the line. If we take a step back, I kind of disagree with you. I think Bristol City still need a lot more than just Rob Atkinson to trouble even the top half. They brought in Andy King and Matty James, which, if I'm being honest, are two signings which I think are a bit meh. They still need to strengthen basically everywhere apart from the defence and keeper. But Atkinson's a class signing and someone I'm very excited to see in the Championship next season. What were you going to say?
I don't disrespect Matty James. He was incredible last season for Barnsley and Coventry.
He was good.
You're such a buzzkill today. Spitting on things.
Spitting all over the place. Buzzkilling. What am I like? Justin, one transfer which has caught your eye is Benik Afobe to Millwall. Why is that?
He's a player that I absolutely adore at championship level. I think I always have. It's one of them forwards who you think if there's a player available and Benik Afobe pops up, then you go. Every fan of a club will go, well, let's have a look, shall we? But when he left Wolves, I think it was back in 2015, 2016 to Bournemouth, it was probably a bit too soon for him. I think he stalled a bit at Bournemouth. And we saw flashes of his quality at Bristol City a couple of seasons ago before he cruelly did his ACL. And we thought Benik Afobe was back, and obviously he was out for the season and he went to Trabzonspor last season. But him coming into Millwall, exactly what he needs and exactly what Millwall needs. And I don't think we're going to get the Benik Afobe who was as prolific as he was at Wolves and NK Dons. I think we're getting a more rounded Benik Afobe that is going to bring the best out of the players around him at Millwall. And as we've said for a long time, what Millwall have missed is a productive number 9. Not necessarily one that's going to grab 20, 25 goals, but one who's going to get double figures and one who's going to impact the play around him, because they've had to play Mason Bennett and Jed Wallace up front for a long time, and they're not hold-up players. They run in behind, they run with the ball. Putting Benik Afobe in there, I think with those two around him, it's going to be a dangerous front three, potentially.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Afobe is, if they can get him back to his best, then my word, what a player. And Millwall, again, kind of echoing what you're saying at this point, but all they've needed is just one striker who can get double figures. They had, 5 different strikers last season, and none of them really had a good season. So now they've got someone who potentially could be a cracking signing. Was it a free as well?
It's a loan, I think.
Oh, is it a loan?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
still a good signing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about someone who Stoke paid £12 million for. I mean, in hindsight, that's a terrible transfer, but there's a reason why they paid that much for him, because at second tier level, Benik Afobe is a legend at the second tier. And again, Guy Rowett is capable of getting him back to his best. He's had a tough few years, both on and off the pitch, but now's his chance to, rekindle the fire that we saw from a few seasons ago when he was at Wolves. Justin, the next transfer which caught my eye is Izzy Brown to Preston. And when I say this is a signing that caught my eye, I'm not necessarily giving it the stamp of approval and saying this is a good signing. Izzy Brown has had a very mixed few years, and I'm just very interested to see how it goes. He has been, a permanent loanee, hasn't he? Just constantly being shipped out to championship clubs by Chelsea, who never seemed to have any intention of giving him a look in the first team. So first and foremost, it's going to be interesting to see how he does with a permanent home, because, well, that's what he said in the media. He's happy to finally have a home instead of being farmed off to random championship clubs every season. But it'll be interesting to see which Izzy Brown Preston gets, because he's had 5 loan spells in the championship. Rotherham was a success. Huddersfield, an overwhelming success. Leeds, he just disappeared off the face of the earth. Luton was good, but hindered by injuries. And Sheffield Wednesday was an absolute disaster. So hopefully the fact he has got a permanent home, we'll see the player that we saw at Huddersfield and Rotherham and at times at Luton. And if that happens, then Preston have pulled off a blinder here, haven't they?
It is. I'm a big Izzy Brown fan because he's a player that you look back and you think, oh, he's so good in these seasons. But then he has those seasons where I think his Leeds spell he did get injured. He did have a serious injury. But injuries have seemed to have followed him around wherever he's been, even when he was at Huddersfield and Luton, where he probably had his better spells. But yeah, injury seems to have followed him around where if he stays fit and, as we say, finds a home, then Preston have got a very good player on their hands. You've got to have that feeling of being settled, haven't you? I can't imagine how hard it is having to, especially as a young player growing up, going to Huddersfield, going to Leeds, going to Sheffield Wednesday, all Yorkshire actually, so it can't be that bad. But there's a lot of moving around, and you're never truly settled, are you, until you actually find a full-time job, a contract with a couple of years on it, and I know he's only got a year at Preston, but he's got a really good chance to prove himself at this level because he's done it before. He's just got to find that form again.
Oh, he absolutely has done it before. He, at times, has been a chance creation machine in the championship. And again, Preston have desperately needed some creativity. Still need a striker, but this is a cracking signing. Final transfer which caught our eye, Justin, and this is one of yours, is Levi Colwill to Huddersfield. Now, might not be a particularly familiar name to many of our listeners. Give us a bit of background on young Levi Colwill, Justin.
Well, he's just 18, and he's not made a professional appearance yet. I think he has played a few Papa John Trophy games in the EFL Cup, whatever you want to call it. So he has made a couple of appearances at some sort of senior level, but nothing of great significance. He's a left-footed defender, centre-half, can cover left-back, and he's incredibly composed on the ball, very, very good on the ball. And I know a lot of the data people are sort of running riot on him because they're very impressed by him, and for that reason, and as well as that, how Corberán likes to play, having that composure on the left side of defence is going to help them, and it's going to help Colwill develop essentially. And what we've seen over the past couple of years is left-sided defence centre halves from Chelsea come into the Championship and do very well. You're looking at Fikayo Tomori and Mark Gurley, two very good examples of it working out very well. I think the only difference here is Colwill's just 18 years old, so he's going to have a bit of time to settle in, but a very, very good signing. Depending on what formation Huddersfield play, whether they go 3 at the back or 4 at the back. I think he's going to fit very well in either of those as a left-sided centre-half, but with a caveat of just easing him into the Championship.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've been spending all season watching Chelsea reserve games or how they did in the Papa John's Trophy. But what I do know about Levi Colwill is that he is very highly rated at Chelsea. And when you've got an academy like Chelsea's and you're hearing such good words about this single player, then it's an exciting time for Huddersfield fans because it looks like he could be a real player and one to keep an eye out for next season for even neutral Championship fans. And if he does go on to emulate the likes of, Tomori and Gurhi, I mean, we talk about those players. They weren't getting as much praise as this lad has been getting from what I've seen from what I've been seeing on social media from the past few weeks. So if he's an even better prospect than those two, then my oh my, Carlos Corberán, you have pulled off a blinder in getting this lad in.
I think a really important point to make as well is the amount of errors the Huddersfield defence made last season in trying to bring the ball out from the back. I mean, Naby Sarr, he's a good player, but he's not a ball-playing defender in the same regard as Colwill is. So putting someone as composed and good on the ball and good at coming out with the ball as Levi Colwill into that team, I think it's going to help Huddersfield massively, and it's probably going to give Huddersfield fans a bit of a sigh of relief whenever the ball gets played out in tight situations.
Yeah, they definitely needed to improve their defensive side of things, didn't they? Did they have the worst defensive record in the Championship last season? It was definitely up there, wasn't it?
I know they made the most errors leading to goals, but they did have Richard Keir inside. So
you just had to watch the goals they conceded last season. It was an absolute disaster at the back at times. But yeah, they were one of the worst teams in the Championship defensively last season, and all they need to do is just improve that, and then it's a season of progress for Huddersfield. What they go on to achieve this season, who knows? But if they manage to solidify that defence, then jobs are good. Justin, we're coming towards the end of the show, but let's do some polls, shall we? This is the part of the show where on Twitter we ask you 3 questions which we want to get your thoughts on. So the first question that we asked our listeners was, which team will finish highest out of the 3 relegated sides? Justin, Fulham, Sheffield United, West Brom. Which one would you say, and which one do you think won the poll?
Oh, that's so difficult because even Fulham, I think when we reviewed the Scott Parker, Marco Silva appointments and Parker leaving, I was a bit skeptical of Fulham. But even now, I'm like, they've got a good squad though. But I think Sheffield United won the poll, but I think West Brom will finish highest.
West Brom won the poll, and they got 48%. 29% said Fulham, 23% said Sheffield United. Oh, okay. It's got to be pointed out there is still a long time left in this transfer window because it's going on into the season as well, isn't it? So they could be in completely different situations in a few weeks' time. But I am looking at West Brom and thinking, my oh my. Fulham are the favourites though at the moment, Justin. You'll be interested to know. Kind of sticking with the relegated sides theme, those 3 teams have all changed manager this summer. Which of those 3 is the best boss? Marco Silva, Slavisa Jokanovic, Valerian Ismail. Same question, Justin. Which one, in your opinion, and which one do you think won the poll?
Well, I don't like Marco Silva, so let's just disregard him.
Is it because he constantly looks sad?
We've discussed this before, haven't we? No, it's not that. I think he's tactically inept, but we'll move on. I think, oh my God, that's so hard trying to pick between Jokanovic and Ismail. I'll say Ishmael's the best boss, but I think Jokanovic won the poll. But I was wrong last time. So
Jokanovic did win the poll. He got 44%. Valerian Ismail got 40%. So pretty close between those two. Marco Silva got 16%. Slavisa Jokanovic, record in the Championship. Sublime, isn't it? Ismail, fantastic season with Barnsley last season. Yeah. Can he do it again? Who knows? Final question. Marmite, yes or no?
It's disgusting. And I know you're obsessed with it.
I will not hear a bad word said about Marmite on this podcast. 65% of our listeners said no. which is very disappointing. You guys have got no taste. But yeah,
literally, you've got no taste. Sorry.
Well, Marmite is a spectacular spread. It's superb. I just don't understand how people don't like it. You can have it with anything.
You're wrong if you like it. Sorry.
That's blasphemy at its highest. I think that's just about it for us, ladies and gentlemen, on the second tier this week. So thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. Not long to go until the new season starts. It really creeps up on you when there's an international tournament cracking off. We'll be back again next week with another episode talking about all the latest goings on in the Championship. And then after that, it's time to do our table predictions, Justin. That's how quick this season is coming around, and I bloody can't wait. It's here, ladies and gentlemen. It's a new season of the Championship, a new season of the second tier. We're ready for the ride. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
Thank you for listening.